Tonight, in this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinox Television, the contested Bureau of Église Evangélique du Cameroon refuses to accept the decision of the Littoral Court of Appeal. Jean Samuel Njetoya, in a press conference today in the city of Douala, said that he is going to be taking the matter to the Supreme Court in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. We tell you more in this edition of the news. Also ahead, pupils in Moyoka traveled to Boya to take part in the first school living certificate that took place across the national territory. Today, the examinations that took place unfolded hitch-free in some parts of the littoral region of Cameroon. In the second part of this newscast, we come back to the recent report of Amnesty International talking about targeted killings and continuous violence in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. Our guest tonight is an actor of the civil society and a political analyst. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this edition of the primetime newscast on Equinox Television. We begin right away with the crisis at Église Evangélique du Cameroon, the Littoral Court of Appeal that has decided to nullify the election of the elected Bureau of Église Evangélique du Cameroon. They were elected in April 2017 in Gaoundéré in Cameroon. It should be noted that the Littoral Court of Appeal decided to rule in favor of the Bonanjo Court of First Instance, a decision that was made public just a few weeks ago here in the littoral region of Cameroon. But the bureau that is being headed by Jean Samuel Njetoya has said that he is not going to end at this level. He is going to be taking the matter to the Supreme Court in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. He was speaking to media men and women in the city of Douala today. Our reporter Manjikan Gabriel tells us more in this story.
After the Douala Court of Appeal's decision to suspend the current Bureau of the Evangelical Church in Cameroon recently, the suspended team headed by Reverend Pastor Njetoya says they will appeal the decision. According to the Secretary General of the Evangelical Church in Cameroon, Reverend Pastor Ngute Philippe,
au terme de la décision de la Cour d'appel.
After the decision taken by the Court of Appeals rejecting the appeal of the Evangelical Church in Cameroon, the church will now file another appeal to the Supreme Court of the country.
Devant la Cour suprême de notre pays.
With the recent decisions, Christians are now confused who becomes their spiritual leader, but the suspended bureau is not yet set to leave so easily. Kamato Martin, the church's lawyer, says, with the appeal already filed, the current bureau can still stay in power until the final decision is handed. Pastor Richard Priso Mongole, joined on telephone, says the bureau is supposed to step down immediately the decision was passed. In the heat of the crisis plaguing the EEC, the government of Cameroon asked both parties to settle in an amicable manner, but no luck. Call for a dialogue to look for ways to settle the problem. Pastor Richard Priso Mongole had given his conditions, and one of his conditions was that the bureau that was elected recently should step down. For a peaceful end to the problem plaguing the Evangelical Church in Cameroon, they are now calling on the other group to participate in the next general gathering of the church. The Secretary General says
un synode général sera convoqué.
A general gathering will be summoned and everyone will be expected to be part of it. If anyone denies to come, it is his or her right, but God will guide us on how to handle it.
Certains refusent de venir à ce synode.
The EEC saga began since July 21 after the election that brought into power Pastor Njetoya that took place in Gaoundéré.
The Communication Minister Issa Shiruma Bakari met with media men and women in Yaoundé. That was yesterday, during which she indicated that administrative findings on the case of the illegal organization known as the Integration and Development Mission in Africa, MIDA, are now over, with the government channeling the case to the court for each and everyone's responsibility to be established to lay down conditions to get the funds of the victims refunded. Minister Issa Shiroma Bakari noted that 9 suspects of media organization have so far been apprehended and they have been presented before the prosecutor in the nation's capital. According to the communication minister in Cameroon, over 18 billion francs CFA was collected. Let's hear him in the following excerpt.
Following these investigations jointly conducted by the DGSN, the DGRE, and the SED, 9 suspected were arrested and have today been presented to the prosecutor of the Mfundi High Court. In all, with regard to the 7th and 8th batches of subscribers, an amount of 18 billion 807 million 425,000 CFA francs was collected, corresponding to 17,301 subscribers for 1,504,594 subscribers shares. 3 billion 850 million 542,275 CFA francs were seized, leaving a shortfall of 14 billion 956 million 882,525 francs CFA as compared to the amount collected. Given that the administrative investigation is over, the government, which, as it should be recalled, is no way liable for this situation, has referred the case to the court to establish the responsibilities each and everyone and to lay down the condition for restoring the respective rights of the subscribers.
The communication minister in Cameroon, Issa Shiroma Bakari, they're talking about what has so far been described as the media scam. Now, in the economic capital Douala, 5 victims of a fatal road accident which took place in Peikawit, that is a neighborhood here in the city of Douala, are now under intensive medical care. 2 of the victims are motorbike riders and 3 of them passengers were crushed by heavy-duty truck. Details with Innocent Aze.
Critically injured man being evacuated to the Douala General Hospital. At the Cité de Palmier Hospital, 3 other casualties are under intense medical care. Barely few minutes later, the 5th victim of the fatal road accident at Peikawit was transported to a hospital. His case was most severe. Victims of the accident included 2 motorbike riders and 3 passengers, amongst them 2 girls. According to an eyewitness, the driver of the pickup vehicle lost control of it and crashed down the 2 bikes that were ascending. The vehicle, known to be transporting brewery products, was severely damaged while the motorbikes were smashed beyond repairs. The brewery truck was left in a horrible state. The stretch of road has been under rehabilitation for months now. Barricades have been planted to prevent frequent users from being trapped in the pit. Such an accident raises debate on why obsolete vehicles are still tolerated to circulate in cities in Cameroon.
And still here in the country's economic capital, Douala, dictation was the most difficult one of the most difficult subjects pupils wrote on the day one of the first school living certificate examinations that took place across the national territory. That case, it was particular for pupils of the economic capital Douala. Those of certificate d'études primaires were equally sitting in for the examination today across the national territory. A reporter, Franklin Moabet, tells us in the following story that it kicked off hitch-free in the city. His report.
Final year primary school pupils in Cameroon began writing the first school living certificate examination of the Anglo-Saxon subsystem of education and the Certificat d'études primaires (CEP) of the French subsystem of education today, June 12. Pupils of government practicing school Aqua and other schools conveyed with enthusiasm to write the examination. Out of the 490 pupils to sit for the CEP examination at the government practicing school in Aqua, 487 turned up with 3 absent. Most of the pupils who came to write the examination found that their names were not on the list of those to sit for the examination, while others had their names wrongly spelled. But solutions to these problems were quickly made. According to Aurélie Mumha, Chief of Sub-Center Government Practicing School Aqua, candidates have to fill in the right order of their names in a form after the examinations so that when their certificates come, it carries the right order of their names. And also they have allowed the candidates whose names were not found on the list to write the examination, and after that they will verify if they had registered, and if it's the case, then they will have to correct their registrar. The Certificat d'études primaires (CEP) started with dictation and essay writing, and later in the afternoon the people sat for arithmetic and general knowledge. Some of the people shared their first experience in the strive to obtain the first certificate of their lives. Dictation was a bit difficult, but we had done it before in our school. The essay was to write a letter to your uncle telling him you have passed the CEP examinations. Dictation was difficult, but I wrote it well. Essay writing was a little bit easy. I will see what to do to get my marks up for the coming papers. The first school living certificate and Certificat d'études primaires, which began June 12, will end this Wednesday across the nation.
And the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Basic Education in Cameroon was in Boya, Limbe, in the southwest region of the country to supervise the kickoff of the first school living certificate and Certificat d'études primaires examinations in the said region. Mr. Benoit Ndong was at GS Boya, Lycée Moliko, École Primaire Francophone Boya. He was equally at GS Bolton downtown as well as in Tico. Because of the crisis, pupils in Moyoka traveled to Boya to take part in the examination. In the southwest region, some 13,400 candidates are taking part in the first school living certificate in some 63 centers. Meanwhile, 669 are expected to sit in for Certificat d'études primaires in some 17 centers. Let's now have an excerpt of the Secretary of State at the Ministry of Basic Education, Mr. Benoit Ndong, was speaking to Derek Jato. Take a listen.
I've come here this morning to try to check to make sure that the exams are going well. We have started in Chico, then Goya, and now we are in Limbe. We have visited 42 centers, and we have ascertained that everywhere things are going well. You know, the will of the government is to make sure that in spite of
and scandal in some GCE accommodation centers in Boya and other parts of Cameroon. Today, several students who were unaware that the GCE board had actually announced that the A-level Literature and English paper 3 was to be rewritten yesterday, Monday, instead went for the examination that was today. The subject was rewritten yesterday due to the problem some subjects had with questions, according to the registrar of the GCE. But only few parents received a text message, according to reports rescheduling the examination date. Students who did not receive the information instead showed up this Tuesday, one day after the subject was rewritten. It should be noted as well that advanced level geography paper 3 would also be rescheduled, or has been rescheduled on Friday, July 15, 2018, and is going to be taking place in the afternoon. It was a difficult moment for some of the students sitting in for the examinations that actually visited some of the centers and discovered that advanced level literature in English was instead written yesterday, that is paper free. The GC board is still to react on the situation and the way forward. Now we talk about Muslim faithfuls that have continued to observe the period of the Ramadan across the national territory. What is the situation of Muslims in the northwest region of Cameroon, precisely those in Kumbo? They have revealed that the Ramadan period, which entails intensive prayers and fasting, has been adversely affected by the Anglophone crisis. They say that to go out early in the morning or at night for prayers is practically difficult as a result of the insecurity and curfew being observed in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. These images, as we can see on our screens, are Muslims clearing the field of the Islamic high school in Kumbo, setting the pace as the end of the Ramadan fasting draws near. The first deputy imam of Kumbo said that there is need for the Anglophone crisis to be addressed by the government and that they are carrying out special prayers in that regard. Let's hear him in the following excerpt. He was speaking to Chris Conform.
Evening prayer, when we perform the Shafi wal Witri, or after the Taraweeh or the Tahajjud prayer, we supplicate. We are praying now because we are handing everything out to Allah, that Allah should help. Because in fact, even the special prayer that we are supposed to perform during these last 10 days of Ramadan, after midnight, it has not been easy to some of us in some quarters because of the insecurity, because we are afraid to go out at night. Something can happen to you. You can be killed, because in some of our quarters, some Muslim brothers, elders, and youths, they have lost their life for no good reason, and we don't know who are responsible. And that is it. In fact, it is because of the insecurity and the situation that we are facing. So we don't have any choice than to supplicate, to pray to the Almighty Allah to help us out of this situation, solve this problem peacefully, so that we should live in harmony, in security, and have love for each other.
And judges at the International Criminal Court has ordered for the release of Congolese ex-Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba following his acquittal that was last week on war crime charges. According to the court order issued on Tuesday, Mr. Bemba would be freed in neighboring Belgium, where his family is living. Bemba was found guilty in 2016 of crimes committed in neighboring Central African Republic. From 2002 to 2003, he was accused of failing to prevent his rebels' killings as well as raping in the country. And we continue with news out of Cameroon. This historic moment between the U.S. president and the president of North Korea, the U.S. President Donald Trump, that has said that his historic talks with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that ended in a joint agreement was tremendous. So those were the declarations of the U.S. President Donald Trump. The signed document includes a pledge for Mr. Kim to rid the Korean peninsula of nuclear weapons, but in an extraordinary media conference later, Mr. Trump announced details that were not included in the papers. Let's have details with Oro News.
A handshake to go down in history. It's the first time a sitting US president has met a North Korean leader, and both men recognized the significance of the formal greeting. Moments later, an optimistic President Donald Trump and a seemingly positive Kim Jong-un shared their initial thoughts with the world's press.
I feel really great. We're going to have a great discussion, and I think tremendous success. They'll be tremendously successful. And it's my honor, and we will have a terrific relationship, I have no doubt.
Then it was Kim's turn to speak. The past has acted like fetters on our wings, he said, and the old prejudices and practices worked as obstacles in our way. But we've overcome them, and we're here today. The two men then went on to have face-to-face talks, and after 40 or so minutes the pair headed for discussions attended by their top leaders. It's unclear if it's been a propaganda show or if progress is really being made, but President Trump was heard to say, "We will solve it, we will be successful, it will be done." Evelyn Laverick, Euronews.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Up next is Talking Point. Once again, good evening to you, Mr. Ako John. Ako, good evening. Thank you so much for coming.
The pleasure is mine.
You are a political analyst and an actor of the civil society. Once again, thank you for coming.
Yeah, I will always be with you when issues affecting Cameroonians are supposed to be discussed upon.
Before we talk about issues affecting Cameroonians, we've just seen this historic handshake between the U.S. president and that of North Korea, the leader Kim Jong-un. Highly awaited, it is at the center of every debate. The meeting for the first time, and sitting with a sitting U.S. president. That is, they are meeting for the first time. That was what I was actually about to say to you. What is the significance of this meeting between the U.S. president and the Korean leader?
Yeah, the first thing acknowledged from the meeting of Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un of the Korean Republic, you realize that this is something I've been talking about, even the generation we have in Cameroon, that change is what we believe in. And that change can never be brought by the same old and outdated parents whom presently we are having in Cameroon. Remember, the grandfather of Kim Jong-un could not do what he has done. The father could not do the same thing.
Even the predecessors of Donald Trump.
That is what we are saying. Away from the predecessors of Donald Trump, the move is coming from a young, elegant leader of a nuclear power that has decided to talk to the United States. It doesn't mean that the former could have done the same thing, but just what they have done is telling us that this is a generation of peace and that there is a need to carry both nations ahead. And I would like to tell you that if North Korea is coming on the sitting table at this dying moment, you could equally realize that on the early days of Donald Trump coming to power, a lot of sanctions have again fallen on North Korea, and that the North Koreans need America. Likewise, America equally needs North Korea when it comes to economics and other business activities within the Pacific, or how can I call it, Northern Asia. You realize there is China, there is Russia, there is North Korea, there's South Korea, Japan, and the rest. All America already control North and South Korea and Japan, but then needs the support also of the North. If business has to go as usual with the competing power of China, America needs more friends. And I will tell you, it is equally going to confirm what Donald Trump said when he took power. He said America first, and that will be the interest of America. At the time when Europe will be thinking of sidelining or having trouble with Donald Trump is making friends with one of the longest enemy of the United States, which we mean. At this extent, he has said he's going to promise America the best deal so ever, hoping he equally criticized the position of Obama on the Iranian nuclear deal, and that going with North Korea will offer Americans the best opportunity.
Should this be a lesson to African leaders in general?
I would like to tell you that African leaders, very few have decided to learn. Many have failed to even listen, even when that is coming from their very people. We need not see the Westerners do or carry out a particular act for us to copy. We have been in school 60, 50, 70 years after independence. I believe Africans can do certain things by themselves. But I said in Africa, we still have the First World War agents still being at the top of politics, and the old ideas still remain. I will salute the effort of Kim Jong-un of making it possible that they meet with the American leader, and that has been a historic moment throughout the world. I mean, all TVs, all press organs carry title U.S. Donald Trump Kim meets in Singapore. This is an excellent gesture from a young leader whom I admired, whom I think it should be the same in a country where I belong.
Of course, Mr. Ako John, talking about country Cameroon, Amnesty International has again published another report elaborating on the circle of violence. So that was the word used by Amnesty International in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. To the international human rights organization, security forces are brutalizing, killing and destroying houses, and on the other hand, Amnesty International referred to, said that the separatists or the pro-independence fighters are equally attacking schools, teachers and security forces in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. In the past months or the past weeks, we've been seeing reports from international NGOs, human rights organizations, Amnesty International, International Crisis Group, UNESCO, UNICEF. What does this actually mean, Mr. Ako John?
Yeah, we as Cameroonians in general, and Anglophone Cameroonians in particular, we don't need foreign reports to tell us what is going in the field. And if there is anybody who is still in this Cameroon and feeling that the situation is normal and that is under control, I will bet them, those who belong to the military, those who belong to the government, the ministers, the SDO, the parliamentarians, the senators should move on a quiet and still visit to this region. I mean, the information you bring back home will tell you that nothing is going right. And if nothing is going right, we need not tell a lie to ourselves. You cannot cook from the same pot and the same person stealing from the same pot. The moment that is done, then you are even causing a crime to your own very self of telling a lie. And we need to fix things by ourselves. In fact, if the international community is now coming to light, it's already telling you that what we thought was an internal problem has become an international problem, and so need an international solution. It will equally mean that the powers and the government of this country has failed to handle a problem within its borders, which is already acting as a threat to the international community and the neighbors of Cameroon. And this will equally mean that the United Nations as a power regulating organ throughout the world, through its various agencies. This came in fact, it's coming in after the U.S. ambassador made statements. Cameroonian officials, professors who thought they have studied international relations, came out with a lot of criticisms. The Minister of External Relations gave his own opinion. But I'm telling you that those of us who find time to go to the region, it is not better off. And if we believe Cameroon belongs to Cameroonians, we need to act as Cameroonians and not to protect a particular individual. We need to talk to Cameroonians. We need to resolve Cameroonian problem and fail or stop giving reasons that we can manage. We can manage. I said at the beginning, I will insist, no situation in the world has ever been managed by arms. Talk less of when the military take arms against its own very people. It has never happened. And when I keep on saying, I stand here to bear a testimony that change is about coming to Cameroon.
Change is about coming to Cameroon. Now, can this series of reports, an outing from international bodies, hasten the process of his seeking solutions to this Anglophone crisis?
Yeah, obviously, we have seen it many. These international organizations, I will point out, I will tell you that the last report made by the International Crisis Group was criticized by the same government. The same report, another report by Amnesty, it was criticized by the government. The United Nations, I'm telling you, they are already United Nations agents in Boya, acting and trying already to support on what, in fact, finances are already being raised in certain quarters to help Cameroonian refugees in Nigeria and in even those who are internally displaced. Others are still living in bushes, and we know the period where this is at the heart of the rainy season in Africa, and we still sit quietly to see our brothers and sisters litter or live in bushes, and the government find it comfortable that the solution can still be by arms. We have said a lot of things here, and I believe if this government is a listening government, let's not be so, pessimistic, but I will tell you that if it continues, a fly that fails to listen to advice one day will surely run or take itself to the grave.
You've talked about the government reacting after, for instance, a perfect example is the International Crisis Group, which was even declared persona non grata in Cameroon by the communication minister. But recently we've seen the outing of UNESCO that indicated that some more than 33,000 students have not been able to go to school as a result of this crisis, and that close to 50 institutions have been set ablaze. But the government is still to make an outing on that. How can we interpret the stance of the government with regards to reports from international organizations?
Yes, when power is more highly centralized, as we have in Cameroon, where everything depends on Yaoundé, even if you need potable drinking water, you depend on Yaoundé, the decision will still come out from Yaoundé, which will mean that if there is failure in the regime, it is not the failure of the governors or the SDOs, the failure of the decision is coming from the powers that holds the nation in Yaoundé. The government is still continuing its action of always criticizing rather than looking. And I will tell you that even if we are about looking solutions and the government thinking of which is a better way that we have just seen for the first time ever, the Bilingualism Commission comes out outrightly to give the same report as was presented by the people in the Bamenda meeting. But then, when the crisis just started, you realize that the results were all thwarted and that there is no reason, there is no problem. Those who refuse the same problem are the same people on daily basis in which that the government is still relying upon. There is a problem in the regime. There is a problem in Cameroon. We need to solve this problem. And I said at the beginning, until you accept that there is a problem, you will become, in fact, dormant. You become opaque. Your brain will be eluded or, in fact, dark for you to bring out solutions appropriate to handle it. The moment you accept there's a problem, then you will be open to find solutions. And a lot of it, let's fail to blame international organizations. I will tell you equally that many Cameroonians promised death for the U.S. ambassador in a quiet opinion of the U.S. ambassador, whatsoever it was. But the way Cameroonians spoke about it, it's like he had no right. The same government gave this country arms. The same government is training the same military to combat Boko Haram, and the same government was not having the stamina to talk to Cameroon or counsel Cameroon on current issues. I said it is a whole bunch of nonsense that we find in Yaoundé, that we don't accept friends when we are going bad, and we accept them only when they are giving us tips. There is a problem with management and governance.
Now, granting of general amnesty has been cited as a major solution to this crisis. Granting amnesty to all those that have been arrested and they are behind bars. The Anglophone leaders that were picked up in Nigeria, whose whereabouts up to now remains unknown. Do you think that that could somehow, if a general amnesty is granted to all those that have been arrested, it could be the beginning of a solution to this crisis, Mr. Akojo?
It is not the beginning of the solution. I will tell you, it is not the first time. The government created it. And I will tell you, you cannot be discussing with people 2 days after you dismantled the organization, saying it is an illegal organization. Remember, with what we talk of the consortium of Anglophone lawyers and teachers, the outlawed consortium and the SNC. These were the group of members that were talking in the name of the people. The government decided to dislocate and neutralize, then come later on and arrest the same people to prison. It is not the first time I'm saying. I said for a better solution for Cameroon to move forward, all those that were caught during the crisis have to be released immediately. Not only released with exception, I mean everybody, if recognized, arrested during this crisis, is the first step. It's not a step, it's not even a solution to the problem, but an initial, I mean the willingness for you to go to a dialogue table. What we are saying here is a sincere dialogue. And what I'm telling you now is that what dialogue we are going to embark on will equally affect the nature of Cameroon. Let's not go on the negotiation table and tell those who are on the opposite side that this one will be negotiable, this one is non-negotiable. The moment you make some issue negotiable and non-negotiable, there is already creating another circumstance of another conflict, and that the dialogue may equally just end on a dead end. And so we need sincere dialogue, we need sincere governance, we need Cameroonians to be sure that the solution we are providing today will not only serve the present generation, I mean the sustainability of the proposed solutions. We should look at solutions that will serve Cameroon for the next century, accepting the multicultural nature of Cameroon, accepting the multilinguistic nature of Cameroon will give us an advantage to understand Cameroon and apply Cameroonian solution to Cameroon problem. If this is not on the table, then I will tell you that this nation is preparing to bury a generation which others have taken hostage for the past 100 years. Remember, we have senators at 80 years, we have a president almost 90 years. It will mean that about 2 generations have already been buried. And if Cameroon is sincere to itself, this country belongs to all Cameroonians. If we have to take into consideration the principle of intergenerational equity, we have to transfer issues that we have heard today to those who are still to come. But when one generation close it over to himself until he dies,
that is why opposition leaders are proposing political transition.
But this
do you think that could
a political transition in Cameroon may calm down tempers, but might not wipe the Cameroonian disease. The Cameroonian disease, which indicates that some people are privileged to be in certain position and others are not. And already we have seen a lot. Meaning Anglophones are not too intelligent like Francophones. Anglophones cannot hold certain positions. We need a whole generation of mental revolution to wipe out the ideologies of the old regime, where just a few can control. And that if you were born in Furawa, if you were born in Mora, you can never be a president of the Cameroon except you were born in the city. We need to wipe out all this issue that Cameroon belongs to all Cameroonians and that we as Cameroonians merit to be Cameroonians. If all these are not better off in a new republic, then Cameroon will still suffer from the sins of their parents. We too shall suffer the consequences.
Thank you, Mr. Akojo.
The pleasure is mine.
We hope to have you some other time.
We'll always be together.
Thank you once again. To our viewers, it was equally a pleasure having with us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs until we meet again. Goodbye.